Hi everybody, welcome back to Just Me Fashions. I'm Rebecca. Today we are going to do an exciting, simple project out of old clothes. I always like to recreate what I have because a lot of times I have a hard time trying to find stuff that I like. So I got this shirt that we are going to add things to. It's going to be so simple. So what we're going to need for this is, well actually I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to, it's a turtleneck shirt, and for some reason I'm really into turtlenecks. It's kind of getting cold where we're at, so I'm pulling out all my long sleeves and turtlenecks. So with this project, what I'm going to do is add a leather, what do you call that thing? Ruffle type of thing on the top of the arm or the shoulder right here. So you're going to need about, and I'm gonna also add it at the end of the sleeve, almost like a little peplum for my wrist. So what we're going to need is about 1.5 yards of stretch leather, and you can find it at any kind of craft store. I bought mine at Joann's and it was a pretty good price. So let's get started. All right, so what we're going to do first is measure on the shoulder, on the top of the shoulder, how far we're going to want that ruffle to go to. So I want mine probably starting from the pit of my underarm. So what we're going to do is measure from the pit of the underarm type of thing, because this arm is kind of like a little loose on me. So I'm going to measure and then fold it in half from the pit of your underarm to up to your shoulder. And I'm going to measure it in half, and that brings me to 16 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an extra inch for my seam allowance, because we are, well, some fabrics you're going to need to hem it. But for this leather, it doesn't run and it doesn't get fringy, so I'm not going to need to hem it. But for the tutorial's sake, I'm going to hem it just to show you guys. So measure, and then so we got the 16 inches. And first, before we do the ruffle, we need to have a seam ripper. And the seam ripper is going to take apart the seam of the arm. And we don't have to take the whole arm off, just part of what we want to sew in the ruffle. So we're going to turn this inside out. Your shirt, turn it inside out. And then with your seam ripper, or this too, that's why I had this little thing here too. This works really well, really close to your seams. So if you have one of these little scissors, you can use these, or you can use a seam ripper. If you don't have neither of these, you can use your regular scissors. You just got to be careful not to cut through your other pieces of fabric. So I'm going to start, and actually I'm going to mark on my shirt with some needles. If you have a fabric pencil or chalk, you can mark where you're going to start your ruffle and where you're going to end it. And like I said, mine was 16 altogether. So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to mark it. So that way I don't have to take all of the seam off of the arm. But if you want to, you can, it doesn't matter. But just so I can save a little bit of time, I'm going to mark it right here. So this is where I'm going to end my seam. So I'm going to start, like you can take your seam ripper and start from one end into the other end. And all you're going to do is, I don't know if you can see this, but take the seam ripper and put it underneath the thread that's sewn on and just take it apart. And then you're going to do that all the way from one marking to the other marking. And once you're done opening that, then that's when we're going to make our ruffle out of this.
Okay.
Go ahead. Did you stop it?
No.
Oh, so go ahead and stop it. Okay, so we used our seam ripper to take apart part of our sleeve. See that? That's the, and this is really stretchy fabric, so it looks super long. But this is the shoulder part, and this is the hole, the armhole. So I didn't take off all of the sleeve, see that? I left part of it on, that way I don't have to worry about putting it all on, back on. So at this point we're done with this. And remember the measurement you took from underneath your underpit or wherever you wanted the ruffle to start. So what I did was, you take your leather fabric and cut some of it off so that way we can make our ruffles. Now for the ruffle, I want my longest part that's going to lay on my shoulder. I want it about 5 inches. So remember, you have to give an extra inch for your seam allowance. So I'm going to measure 6, well this is like the raw edge, so I'm going to take that off anyway, but measure up 6 inches, and I'm going to cut my 6 inches off. So I'm going to cut straight, because that's how long I want my ruffle. And it's the long pieces because it's the bottom part. So what you do next is the length that, or the width that goes across the arm, I think I said it was 16. So, and then add your inch for your seam allowance. So from, what you're going to do is fold this fabric in half like that. I already did and didn't tell you. But fold it in half, and from your fold, see your fold, you're going to measure half of your arm length. So it's going to be, I said, let me see, 18. And so half of that is going to be 9. So I'm going to make a little snip right there where the 9 is. And then I'm going to cut it up. So basically you have a 6 by 8 square. And what I'm going to do, if you ever made a peplum bottom, this is kind of like going to be like a kind of like a peplum style cut. So I'm going to put 2 pins in it to keep my fabric in place. So from the bottom of the material where you're going to start, on the bottom where you want your material to lay, I said about between 5 and 6 inches I want it to lay on my shoulder. You can have it as short as you want or as long as you want, but I'm going to do mine about between 5 and 6. But don't forget to add an inch for your seam allowance, because it will get shorter as you hem it. Now you don't really have to hem it if the material doesn't fringe or like run. Like denim fringes really bad, but this type of leather, it doesn't. So what I'm going to do now is start from the bottom of your material, and then you're gonna kind of make like a rounded cut, and then you're going to end it where the end of your measurement is. So it's going to look something like this. So when you take it off, it's a long piece. See this? It's going to look just like that, and it's going to lay right on your shoulder. Now if you want to add a little bit of style, you can cut lace and lay the lace on top of it. You can put iron-on studs. You can do whatever you want to make this stand out even more. It looks so cute. So now you're going to cut 2 of these for both of your shoulders. And so now this is where you get your shirt. And you're going to pin this on the right side of your shoulder area. So we're going to turn this shirt back inside out, or I mean outside, the right side out. And starting from where I ended my seam, where I stopped taking the thread off, I'm going to place the right side of the leather to the right side of the fabric of the shoulder. Now, if you want it perfectly in the middle, what you're going to do is fold it back and make a snip right where the middle of this fabric is, like there. Once you make a snip, then you know that's your middle, and then you can match it with the seam of your shoulder. That way you know it's like right exactly in the middle. So get where you cut and the seam of the shoulder, place it together and pin it. And what you're going to do now is pin your leather fabric all the way around on the top of your shoulder where it ends, where we ended our seam. So pin it all the way around, and I will show you what's next. Okay, so now that we have our leather pinned in place, we're going to turn the shirt inside out again. And then what we're going to do now is take the piece that we took off with the seam ripper. We're going to go ahead and line it back up and then pin it back to where it needs to be. So we're going to pin and leave your leather piece in here like that. So just pin it. See if I can get these sides together. So pin it. And as you pin, just make sure that you're grabbing both or all three parts of your material, the shirt and then the leather. Make sure you got them all evenly aligned. And after you pin the shoulder back to the shirt with your leather, turn it back the right side way and then take the pins out from the leather, because when you sew, you don't want your needle to break on the needles that are holding our leather in place. So I'm going to continue pinning this all around, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so now now that I have cut part of my sleeve off, I cut probably about 5 inches off. So this is where I'm going to add the peplum or the ruffle to the end of the sleeve. So I have a piece here, and it's measuring about 14th in length, folded in half, and 11 in the, or excuse me, in the length, 11 in the length, and 13 and a half in the width of it. And like I said, it's folded in half. So you're going to cut this just like you would a peplum outfit or peplum bottom, the same way. I don't know if you know, you can cut part of this right here where the fold is at. So if you hear people in the background, it's because I have a house full of people. But here's my fabric. I'm going to fold it in half like that, and just to make it easier, what I'm going to do is place this sleeve at the edge of this fabric, and I'm kind of going to make markings so that way I know where to cut it. So I'm going to make my marking right there for the top, and my marking on the bottom, and this is probably about 3 inches down. So I'm going to cut, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it at a curve, just like we did the shoulder part. So the piece that's cut off, it's going to look like this. And just to show you, I'm going to kind of put pins in it, that way I can open it up and show you what it looks like. But it's not going to stay like this. This is just so you have an idea of what it's going to look like when we are done cutting it. So I put pins in it. It's going to look like this. Okay, we're not done cutting it yet, but this is just, you see that this is where your sleeve is going to get sewn in like that once we're all done. All right, so now that we have this piece cut, this is going to be where your sleeve is. I'm going to cut it in half, or I mean fold it in half again, And I want at least a 5-inch ruffle or peplum, whatever you want to call it. And so from the cut, I'm going to measure 5. So once I know it's 5, then I'm going to make my little snip here at my 5. And I'm going to go over here to the other end and snip where it's 5. So now that I know that that's a 5 and this is a 5-inch, I'm going to go ahead and cut it around. So from where I already cut, I'm going to cut like in a rounded. There you go. And there's what the sleeve is going to look like. So what I'm going to do now is sew this piece where it's open together, and I'll show you what's next.
Hello?
I'll show you what's next. Okay, so now that we have our what was this called again? Ruffle, peplum.
It was a ruffle.
Now that we have it sewn, we're going to attach it to the arm. Okay, so every arm has a seam, which is normally on the bottom of the arm. So what we're going to do now is take where we sewn, flip it inside out, grab your arm, and match the seams up. So, let's see, this one seam to the other seam, and we're going to pen these together. So make sure right sides are facing. So make sure the right side of the leather is facing the right side of your arm material. What you're going to do is pen it all the way around, and we're almost finished after this. There's just one more step. Now if you want to hem it, you can go ahead and hem it, and you gave yourself a 1-inch seam allowance, so you can go ahead and hem it 1 inch or however much you want. So we're going to, and sometimes when you cut the ruffle, sometimes the hole is not big enough, so just go ahead and cut another 1/2 inch off, and if that's still not enough, you know, just adjust it little by little, because you don't want to cut too much off. And even if you do cut too big of a hole, just go ahead where your seam is and then sew it in a little bit more. That way you can close up your hole a little bit more so it can fit. So with my machine, I'm going to go ahead and take this off so that my armhole can fit right here and we can sew it. And remember, you got to use the right kind of thread and the right kind of needle, because your needle and your thread can break, or sometimes it just won't work right if it's not the right type. So if you don't know, just online can tell you what type of needle to use for different fabrics and the kind of thread to use. So we're going to go ahead and sew this all the way around. Let's see. I got to get adjusted here. And just be careful. I mean, take your needles out as you're sewing, because if you don't, your machine needle can break, or you can break your actual pen needle. So we're almost all done here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to remove this needle. And I'm using white, that way you guys can just kind of see. You want to back stitch it a couple times, that way it can stay in place so it won't fall off or have any kind of gapping where you end it. So cut out the excess and just remove your pens. We're almost done. You get to see what it looks like. Got a mess around here, but that is okay. And this is what it should look like. You see that? Isn't that so cute? that is your arm right there. That is your ruffle slash peplum that you added to your sleeve. And I'm going to put this shirt on. I only did one side for the tutorial. I will finish it up later, the other side, but I'm going to try it on and show you one side of it, how it looks on me. Alrighty, so here's one side of the project that we did. Here's your arm right here. It should look just like this. And here's your shoulder. So if you don't want this long, you can hem it or you can just cut it. But this is like about a 5.5 in the length, and this is probably about a 5. So, but if you want it longer, just add more inches to it, make it look fashionable. Like I said, you can add studs, or you can even sew lace on top of this before you sew it to the shoulder. Same here. Be creative, make it yourself, make it you, make it however you want. That's why it's called Just Me Fashions, because it's just you. You're making it to whatever you like. Be creative. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, share this video. If you have any questions, comment in the comment box, email me, give a shout out.